Okay, so we're entering part 3 on our series on the Sanxingdui. These are these enigmatic people that one weird thing is this alien Lincoln squat-faced mug mask that they have that a lot of people have a consensus that their clasp around the bottom of it is actually meant to be a chin beard, and B, these people worship this on top of a totem pole. I have one after the end of this that I'm going to add from my video game. I came in to do my dailies on it, and bam, there was another little piece of info right there in front of us. But so we've been looking through this somewhat, and you can see the profile of it and those ears, which I want you to remember, and they're looking up. And we talked about Proto-Indo-Europeans and how they had this same type of symbology going on, and that ear there that we've been talking about, and there's curly cues that have been shown up that actually make a lot of connections and elongated features and so on that have to do with the Scythians, in fact the pazyryk culture in general. And then there's this one elegant looking carpet that's been found that actually shows a tree of life situation. It's kind of famous. People look at quite often the horse rider there and not the actual tree of life situation, but at Sanxingdui, this tree of life was found, and it mimics very much the Sumerians' version of such, and the one that we know about. In fact, it comes from them. But then another telling thing, quite telling, is the fact that this other carpet that they have from the pazyryk tapestry, from their culture, which we call the Scythians, at the time around 500 BC, shows a man here with blonde hair and curled back, but he has those ears. He seems to be fighting some kind of terror bird, which might be like he's fighting a moa, like I said, and on his back he's got wings. He's got the body of somewhat of a jaguar, and so this weird enigmatic look that they bring across here is not lost on the fact that if we look just at that face, we'd see ears that are on there that are strikingly very similar to the Sanxingdui. And there's your little firework for the moment there, and how it connects, and how you can easily make it connective to people. And where is somebody that had this type of look to them and these ears and so on? And it's definitely these people. They've dug up a few more graves now, but it's really just pottery and so on. No more masks necessarily that look like these. And they're starting to end up being a actual meme here on it. They radiocarbon dated again this dating here on the secondary pit at 1199 to 1017 BC. But the dates from the site go from just under 3000 BC all the way through to that time there. It seems to fade off. Here again are some bronze work that has quite the patina on it, but then again there, it's an elegant look at this thing that they found. It was crumpled down, and there's a piece that's missing off the top of it, they say. They may never find, and probably won't. They looked pretty hard at it, or for it, whenever they'd find the rest of this. But here's that drooping willow, that tree of life, that doesn't really go with or connect to Oriental cultures along with these ideas. And so finally I'll show at the end here we're on a map, and of course there's where the central plains of China were at the time, and then these people that are here, and the Tarim Basin mummies are right up here, and this is even found deeper in. And the other map here I showed you, it showed that they ran out through here, but what comes past there? Well, you can come out here and go through Shanghai, and then there's Japan that's right there, and reach the mainland. It's believed that they have done that a long time ago, and then there also was the same type of people. Instead of coming up here through this strait that they have, they came down through here into Upper India. Same type of people went down here and through the Caucasus and down through and into Yemen and into Egypt and all around the Mediterranean in ancient times. But I guess that's past the scope of this video. But when we look at it here a little closer, Sanxingdui is down the bottom left-hand corner there, running off a river valley, and it's actually far away from the central plains of China. It's known as the Sichuan Basin, and Sichuan food's pretty good. So there again is the depiction of that tree of life. Along with it also were found artifacts like this, which is also somewhat telling because it's another artifact that doesn't go with them. A long rotted scepter, and on it are showing iconography of griffins, fish, and arrows going through both. And this is also a Proto-Indo-European thing. So we find those rods and scepters here hooked up with people like the Sumerians, people of Persia. Ancient Iranian scepters are shown here, and pazyryk on the right, but Sanxingdui on the left. Pazyryk on the right, Sanxingdui on the left, and I think we've made more of a connection than we need to. But we continue because these are the Scythians, and it's hooked up out of the Andronovo culture, as I spoke before. Now, the Andronovo culture is kind of what you would call the pre-Scythians, and it's a wide swath area. But then the other one that I'd shown you before actually seems to go before it, and it's the ideal connection on it, but not like they all left it all at once. Look at these flat plains here and that river running through. You can tell that river does overflow quite a bit. There is higher ground right there. So again, the Andronovo culture, it's kind of got a weird name, you know, androgynous, mankind or whatever, and then novo being new, and the new mankind decided to run down through what? Well, again, here we have the Andronovo culture as we know it or talk about it, the Terran Basin culture that's here that we know are connected to it with very 6-foot tall people. So again, this has to have something to do with that Big Trouble in Little China and the original statement of this guy that was real tall that seeked immortality and did these things, for that's hooked up with them. But instead of going here in the Terran Basin, which is now a desert, they went around through this pass and into Sanxingdui. Bringing in agriculture, bringing in carts, horsemanship, and all the things that go along with it. So it's pretty important culture, for they brought in agriculture and all the things that go with it too. Mongolian people are left there now today, but that's really not the people that were there at the time, although their horses are still there. Some of the beautiful land that's there. So the Altai Mountains that we talk about quite often, and this people in the Altai, you know, and they think somehow mentally that this has got to be real far away from China. Somehow this is tucked up over against us. I've quite often said people think that past Samaria there's just some stuff, and then there's the Orient. And there's this huge patch that India is the bottom of. And really everything that we're looking at is almost not thought of except for the coast here and the China area that's there, but there's Tarim Basin just right below the Altai Mountains. And all you've got to do is come right down here and go through that pass, and it'll run right into it. In fact, it just kind of forces you straight into it. When we look at this new place we're looking at, it's just right over here. Not far away. Though places are turning into desert now, there used to be oases around this whole place. So we're looking at Tarim Basin mummies and talking about that. And they've revealed with that those people are red-haired, right? They call them Chinese mummies because they're in China, but they come from Europe and Asia, and all those are Caucasians, of course. This is well documented, but hidden again somehow. Also, this admixed population that lived there. And if we look at the genetics here, it'll show you a couple of things. The mitochondrial DNA haplogroups are H, K, U5, U7, U2T, and R. Quite often we use those when we're talking about Proto-Indo-Europeans, a lot of those. You know, they're also found in modern populations of East Asia, but also they have B5, which that has B in it, connected to Amerindians, but D, and then also G2. And that's a connective that also doesn't go with them really. Haplogroups later regarded as typically South Asian include M5 or the M subclad. Now, of the paternal lines of male remains, nearly 11 out of 12 of them, they say here, so roughly 92%, belong to the Y DNA haplogroup R1A1, which is now most common in the northern India and northeastern Europe. There's a reason for both of those having the exact same genetics too. The other belong to the exceptionally rare paragroup K, which we've talked about K quite often. The R1A1 lineage suggests a proximity of this population with groups related to the Andronovo culture and Indo-Europeans. And we've talked about K. K seems to be the real popular mitochondrial DNA that we find in the ancient Egyptian nobility also. Isn't that strange and telling? Down here in the bottom right-hand corner is this beauty of Lulan, who was paraded around the world as this mummy that they also had. They have mummies there, they have pyramids there, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to show those pyramids too much. In fact, they did genetics on these guys that we're talking about, and they've pretty much left it alone. I'll show that to you here in just a second, but that beauty of Lulan has blonde hair on her too. So again, here we're talking about people that look like this. So the DNA testing went through on this, on these people that lived right here. Here's the ancient cemetery that was just outside the city walls. You can see where the walls is built, right over there. But on the genetics that were found from that, for some reason, they just want to deny it. They pretty much had this DNA for a couple of decades now, it seems, but they don't want to come out with what the answer is on it, or what the reality of what that was or meant in the first place. So again, we talk about their artifacts that are there, but if we look at the Tarim Basin people, they have very extremely similar artifacts there. In fact, some of them are exact, from mace heads to axes and so on, that are with their burials there, and some of the symbology that are with these. And you can see these wooden idols that are associated with this. Now they're very much like that Sungir idol that we were looking at before. So idol worship is nothing different. In fact, above them is the sun, and sun worship is what brought all this upon in all of the religions that we have. The Caucasians have brought the world, I guess you would look at it in that way. In the left-hand corner over here, you can see one of the burials down there in the bottom, and it's really a boat. It's really a symbolic boat turned over upside down. And that says something in the middle of a desert, doesn't it? For there are boat oars stuck right on the top of each one, paintings done around them and so on. Quite a few of these found, and then a sacred circle that's found on the right. And a burial mound there that's found with a sunken top, so it had a built-in structure on it that collapsed in long after it was first buried in. I can't get over the fact that the one on the left of the bottom two wooden idols there almost has a Boris Karloff look to him from here. So these are the Tarim Basin guys. They're just right up the route, but again, these are all Proto-Indo-Europeans that had done this type of work. And so looking at it closer, again, here's Sanxingdui that's down here, and then Tarim Basin. So these people had apparently gone down through here as opposed to going down and taking a right back into that. Makes perfect sense. Only to be politically correct, you have to act like you're just real ambiguous and not too sure. But if we find Scythian burials in the Tin Shan Mountains of China, and they show all of these things, and other burials that are in the area that almost surround it, it just makes that sense. Makes almost too much sense. So all these Scythian artifacts of these people that brought us chariots and horses and things, and how far was their extent? Well, their extent carried apart as far as the known world was at the time. In fact, they actually found out the breadth of the world themselves, and later found out what was in the underworld and the other side of it too. Here's a depiction of the culture smelting certain items here and stuff, and they try to make them look somewhat primitive, looking somewhat like Indians, looking like this, but then at the same time they have all this advancement going on, really far advanced for their time. And again, heralding brass, well, first copper and then brass into the whole area. In the Tarim Basin, we found those pictures of Phrygian caps on the right, bonnets on the left, but also in the center part, witches' hats, which this one is just leaned back and not showing you that it's got a huge point on the top of it. A lot of people agree that that top was supposed to have that golden cap that's supposed to be on the top of it, that have all the moon symbols that I've shown in a few different videos. That would also be heralding agriculture and civilization in that way, and being able to detect all of the different eclipses, paths of the moon. Yeah. So again, they've got blonde hair curls in this Tarim Basin mummies, and we're kind of aware of it. They don't show the face here in our picture because I believe in their natural country you're not supposed to show somebody that's dead. And that's really just right there in the corner. Right there. And what could be right there? Right there? What's right there? Well, you know, you come to find out that these masks here with these butterfly dragon ears, elf, whatever you want to call it, also have that braid on the back of their hair. Real common for them to do it too. So just one more connective there. Pretty amazing lost culture, but again, here we have Tarim burials and all of their accoutrements that go with them, and we see a lot of connectives that are going with this. So many artifacts. And so really, how you get down into this area here is through a corridor known as the Hexa Corridor. You have to come around, and then if you take that way as a pass through the mountains, it's going to lead you right into this Shangri-La, trapped in between all the mountains here that nobody else can get to in the Tarim Basin area. Only problem is there's really no rain there anymore, and it's turned into a desert. And it's quite different now. But if we look at the Andronova culture and their spans, and something that really is understood is the Silk Road before the Silk Road, you can see the expanse and where they went through. It's not too far off the beaten path whenever you get to this point here to take that turn and come down to this point rather than going straight out. End up meeting the coast. And again, right off the coast here, right here, is Japan. And there are connections to that also. So I've got one more little part coming up here in the top left-hand corner, and it's about my D&D game, and there's some symbology that we showed in part 2 especially that you'll see that's right in there, but also it hooks up to idols, it hooks up to totems, and also hooks up to a lot of people that are running around in this area here, and boating, and so on. It's a quick one though. Top left-hand corner. Peace. Let me know what you thought.